Well, good morning, everyone. It's February 26th in 2024. A very memorable day in that I have a beautiful and wonderful guest. I just know that when I look out here in this audience, some of you are on simulcast TV, Akaku, Maui Community Media, Channel 55 on cable. Some are hearing us on 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui, KAKU. And some of us are up online and looking at YouTube and put in there Maui Neutral Zone or Neutral Jason Schwartz and Ka'io Martin Cruz, our guest today. But you can put in, say, all our shows up there. Ka'io, welcome to our show.
Aloha, thank you for having me.
Am I pronouncing it right?
You are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know I have a group of men that I sit with, and we choose spirit names, and one man chose Ka'io. Ka'io is very significant.
Chose Ka'io? Wow.
Ka'io, you told me, is the hawk. Is it something you were born with?
Oh, I didn't name myself that. My father, Liko,
he was sitting
gave
in that
me that
very
name.
Seat.
Yeah, and it's actually the whole name is Ka'io Kulani, which means wisdom of the high heavens, and I've been called Ka'io for short my whole life.
Wow. Well, I
embrace
wasn't really
that.
Plugged in, and suddenly when I saw this issue, and suddenly I saw you on a 5-hour on February 5th of this year. The People's Council of Maui, I want to say Olowalu branch, but the People's Council of Maui brought up an issue and had 5 hours Zoom coordinated by public access TV here, Akaku Maui TV. And in there, that's where I saw you first. You were sitting next to John.
Yes, my husband.
I wasn't really
John,
sure at the time what was going on, but I saw you then. And I heard you speaking a little bit, and I heard everyone, and I thought, this is not an issue that just comes and goes. This isn't part of a media thing. This is a real-life situation, and this is not the kind of thing you walk away from.
No.
And I sensed your real, true commitment when I saw it. And when I sent an email through Susie here to try to gather people, when you reached out, I was really happy that you reached out, that you come here and be on our show. Welcome to the Neutral Zone.
Mahalo.
As you may guess, it's anything but neutral. It's a neutral zone. And what we mean by that is we hope that the people that are listening and the people that are here keep an open mind and heart to working together. You lead with Ho'oponopono. We have guests from all over the world. Why don't I let you lead in a little bit about how you're here, who you are, and then we'll take it from there. How's that?
Okay. Thank you again for having me, and aloha to the community, our global community, and that's really what it's all about. I'll share a little about myself, and then I'll circle back around to some of those topics that you mentioned in opening. And so I am who I am from my ancestors with my own kuleana and purpose here on Earth, and embracing that in these times with deeper understanding and awareness and trust in my origin, and trust and belief in everybody's origin, that they can come back into balance and right relationship with Mother Earth and each other through the unfoldings that are happening. It's not just this specific situation. I come from a long line of medicine people, and from my Native Hawaiian ancestry to my Native American and Dutch. So I'm this mixed individual of who I am here on Earth, of many different indigenous heritages, and embracing that now in these times. And through my experiences, I've worked a lot with the Aina, the native Hawaiian plants up in the mountains, in conservation and restoration of our watersheds, and spending many years close within the realms of the gods, and listening, spending time with the kupuna. I'm a mother of 5 and a grandmother of 2, yes. And
really, you started at 3. You look so young and beautiful. Huh?
Yes, thank you.
Grandmother.
Ranging from my oldest daughter, Kiana, is 29, and my youngest, Last Mohican, Zane, is 5. 2 girls and 3 boys. And looking at our world with the future generations in mind, and tapping into and choosing to go into the trust within of who we are, and what we've come from, and what is our purpose here on earth. As humanity has, we're seeing some of the darkest sides of the human aspect showing now, and how do we bring that back into balance, and put the egos in check. So it's
Hawaiians
what we do.
use the word ho'oponopono.
Absolutely.
And coming into balance. And I felt that, the richness of your spirit comes through when you, even speaking here, and so what you're talking about finding cultural roots. How did Olowalu cross your path? I mean, in this toxic situation. Your father? I mean, I was trying to think of how did you meet Eddie? Eddie Garcia is a farmer who has a farm right there next to the temporary toxic dumping of dioxins and furans and a multitude of accumulative poisons.
Yeah, and there is no such thing as temporary when it comes to that.
Well, and that's where, this is a giant issue. We can talk for hours like your show did.
Yeah.
That's what we hope to do here, is bring people that'll get up close and personal about so many different aspects. It becomes overwhelming that this should be stopped right now and reviewed and stopped. But if I had the power, I would make a move. But that's what we're doing, we're bringing reasons. I thought of you as cultural, but obviously you have a background in farming. How did you happen to get involved in suddenly being aware of this?
I'm deeply cultural. It's part of the whole aspect of who I am.
Yeah.
I come from tremendous musical roots as well, and in particular with Olowalu, my father is the direct line to our ancestry. His mother, my grandmother's line with our ancestry goes back all the way in perpetuity through Olowalu, Moku'ula, Akana Pali, and Honokahau Valley. And so, in particular with Olowalu, there's kuleana there in protecting the sacred space that it is as a whole. And being that it's I'm a direct lineal descendant to the Ali'i that are from those areas, the Iwi Kupuna are all throughout the areas, that it was just profound to see and experience those within our community in leadership roles, even considering it be an option, and then moving forward with it becoming the option. And the layers of disregard culturally of the sacred site that it is, Olowalu Pu'uhonua.
For you who are sitting in Finland or Greece, Pu'uhonua is a refuge, right?
That's right.
So here in this Hawaiian refuge site,
a safe place,
sacred,
place that's kapu.
Kapu, that means stay out, respected, right?
Yes, and those that are within the pu'uhonua are protected.
I see.
There's many different cultural reasons why somebody would come into a pu'uhonua, or the groups that would come, that those spaces were set up. It's similar to the Honaunau pu'uhonua, South Point on the Big Island, Hakipu'u on Oahu by Kualoa Ranch. Those were profound pu'uhonuas, and Olowalu is one of them.
A refuge, a sacred space.
A sacred space. And when you look back, since we're on this subject of it, which is so important because it takes you back into the understanding and big picture of the sacredness of it, when there's sacredness in all aspects and us individually, but specifically the significance of this.
And it was a place where in the oceans things were growing, and it was like a place of life.
It was so alive.
It
and
still is.
The
right?
pu'uhonuas were, when the ahupua'as, they were abundant. In
Ahupua'a is like a little piece of pie.
From,
it's like from the mountains
Mauka
to
to
the
Makai. That's right. And thriving throughout all aspects of it.
So here, at a place that's a sacred Hawaiian site, sacred, very sacred, they, in the 60s, I guess it was 1960s, they chose that to be the place they take earth from and build out Ka'anapali Resort. So they came and took land from there, and here we are. They
natural resources,
probably
specifically
think, well,
cinder.
And then they created a dump there, a landfill, but a dump for things. But now they're thinking, okay, temporarily, why, is that because it's convenient? But wait a minute, this is an accumulative toxin waste problem. What does that mean? That means the more you put there, this doesn't go away. You can add soil and dilute it, but it's toxic waste that is. Why would they do that and spread it out to a place that's sacred? And who are these Hawaiian groups that our mayor has labeled and referenced are supporting this? That really surprised me.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. And I just want to elaborate a little bit on the sacredness.
Please.
To give a deeper definition of Olowalu within that and a pu'uhonua. So when you look back into history, oral as well as written, but as you know, within our indigenous cultures, a lot of the knowledge is shared orally. And the pu'uhonuas were a place when the ancestors from all around were sailing, and they would come into their canoes and their vessels that they would sail into Hawaii. They were welcomed in to the pu'uhonuas, where the folks that were on them could come off and rest. There was replenishment of the goods that they needed to then carry on their journey. And that was part of what the pu'uhonua is. And within that, it's a complex of heiau, of ahu, of different areas specific for what that region is within the islands, represented of places of prayer and where ceremony was done. And Olowalu was profound in that as a navigational point. And within that understanding now, as Olowalu pu'uhonua ahupua'a is, as a whole, the complex of sacred sites within that is profoundly significant in protecting it as a whole. And going back now to what you've just mentioned of the different desecration phases of it, shows the lack of human ability to set the ego aside and just stop. Think about that. Remember the origins of who we are, who we've come from, the kuleana that is there to protect sacred site, sacred sites, the whole of a space within Mother Earth like Olowalu. And I feel like in these times, what we're facing now with humanity and those that are quote unquote cultural leaders, practitioners, that there is a disconnect that has happened. And we are seeing it. We are experiencing it in a profound way with Olowalu and the level of desecration and that space between knowing our origin, having that mana to protect it no matter what, in whatever crisis that comes up, that not be an option. When you think of Mother Earth, she is what provides for all of our life. Clean air, clean water, clean food. And it's really a time now that I feel like the darker aspects of humanity are showing. And how do we come and bring that into right balance to create right relationship with Mother Earth and one another, and with the Ho'oponopono way as a way of life, not just something that we come in to resolve a specific situation. Because before we can even enter into a space to have Ho'oponopono and come out of it, say a specific gathering for something, come out of it in Pono, we have to make right with ourselves. And when I look at it and am in this place now of taking right action, believing in that within all humanity, that we can come back to that remembering and make right and continue to do right. To make right, the first step of Ho'oponopono is communication. And it's truthful, honest communication with oneself. And that seems like it's a very hard first step for many to take. Because what is that to communicate honestly with yourself? But it's fundamental and it's okay and it's within us all because we are not perfect. But if you continue to say, oh no, make excuses for wrongs that have been done, for that darker shadow side to have taken over and not say, whoa, wait a minute, actually, you know what? I'm not in a good place right now. It's where we are.
And the Ho'oponopono nature is a lot like this neutral zone.
Absolutely.
We have lots of opinions, but we're in a safe space to talk about it and resolve it, you know. Every piece is part of the whole. A'apoa is everything works together to
in
make
harmony, in balance.
So that one's real out now.
And it's okay it's okay to recognize that we're not in balance. It doesn't take away from the oneness of who we are.
No.
Yet it is our kuleana to recognize, like, okay.
Kuleana means, I think of it as responsibility. You know, when we're talking to a global audience, so that's the reason you see me trying to do I'm a quick translator.
Yes.
I was going to say a haole, but I've come to understand a haole means no breath, and no breath means we're an outsider, and there really is no outsider. It's a whole rephrasing of the whole thing. As we look at this together, we can take any prejudices or any kind of thoughts of judgments and put them aside and look at the cultural abuse here. We look at the abuse of people, of a whole watershed and a whole system that worked forever.
Our environment, our ecosystems.
What are we doing?
Yes.
Mayor, are you hearing what
And it's okay to ask oneself. We have to ask ourselves in these times. We're shifting paradigms hugely we have Maui and these specific issues here, but globally, Mother Earth is getting our attention. And truly, we have the opportunity right now to look at it through that lens. And Ho'oponopono is based upon universal natural laws and principles, which is something that's not just within our Hawaiian cultural practices. This is something when you look at indigenous tribes around the world, it's fundamental. These are our rights. And this is what, whether we want to accept it or not, what operates us all here. And these aspects of self clearly are not in balance. And I feel, and I truly believe that if there can be more honest communication with ourselves, being able to take those steps and breaking through that fear of having to face oneself when there has been not pono choices being made, and then the pattern of that happens. You do one thing and then you feel like you got to keep on doing that, when it's okay to just stop. It's like hui hewa, like when mistake, it happens. It happens. And it's okay to ask for forgiveness for that, but to continue to do that. And on a level, when we're looking at specific Lahaina, the wildfire, the toxic debris that are left from that on that specific space of Aina, to then go ahead and choose another place of Mother Earth, massively sacred, and cross-contaminate between there, create a toxic waste dump site that is not temporary. There's no temporary in that. It is basically becoming a Superfund site right there next to the ocean that everybody has to drive through.
That as you'll watch these shows, you're going to hear, all these people, we're all getting to know what a Superfund. That doesn't mean it's super and fun. It means that we take super amounts of money to wall off a problem so that masses more of people don't die. Nowhere did we take care of the environment down below.
No.
How are they?
And it's on springs.
Is such a known thing.
Yes, it's on springs. There's springs under there. This is a tremendously vulnerable
it's a crazy thing.
Place of Mother Earth.
We're going to have some scientists on that'll be able to
absolutely
point arrows. But see, this has been known by our host culture here. You don't mind I call Hawaiians host culture?
No, thank you.
Host culture here for decades, centuries.
Yeah.
And the whole system. Lahaina was that place of the rowdy guys up that came and stopped when they were doing sea fishing, but there was a place of refuge, a Hawaiian community called Olowalu down the way. And just because Lahaina got built up into this tourist destination, Olowalu was the sacred Hawaiian place of refuge, right? And the king, King Kamehameha, never mind his history, but he was in Lahaina.
And Lahaina was the capital of our kingdom of Hawaii.
Right.
So, Olowalu was a place where the ali'i there would then go for rest. There were their homes there, and it's not only my Hawaiian ancestry that comes from there; it's also my Chinese, the Afong Hin. He married my great grandmother Mary Mehe'ula and started Afong Store, which is now known as Olowalu Store, and they are there in the Chinese cemeteries, and it's for that to be disregarded is...
How did that happen? I mean, it's beyond horrible for me.
It is.
But how did that happen? What is the mayor talking about? What groups told him to go ahead? I don't even hear that. I heard it one time in their little release, and I thought, what groups could that possibly be?
How it happened is a question that I can't answer.
Okay.
It's a question that I ask myself as I ponder and wonder, where is the reverence in who we are and what we stand for in these groups that are led by different Kanaka who have taken on multiple different roles in what they identify themselves as. And it's something, that question brings up many different emotions because of the wrongs that have been done within those choices that have been made, and continuing down the road of something that has not been the Pono path.
Your father on that set, there's this 5-hour thing. We'll take pieces of it and have it here on our show, but if you have the time, your father spoke at that 5-hour Saturday council meeting, and he was sitting here with Eddie Garcia a couple of weeks ago when we did our first interview about this, and I remembered him doing music, but he was very eloquent, and he spoke about exactly the point you're bringing up.
Yes.
About, it's like a dead end. What do we do from here? There is no road in the system the way it's set up to get that cultural aspect honored and handled. It's like, what do we do from here?
Yeah.
And so when I hear a mayor who I thought was Hawaiian, I may be wrong, but even if he wasn't Hawaiian,
he does come from
referencing Hawaiian
ancestry,
groups,
yes.
saying, yeah, it's okay, temporary. I still find that shocking. I hope
they don't speak for us. Everybody doesn't, these leaders of them, they don't speak for the whole. They don't speak for me as a lineal descendant of Olowalu. Nobody came and had a kuka or even reached out of how do you feel about this?
But like you
Ka'io,
said, and your father said, this is something that's been ongoing.
There's no accountability.
And here we are from here moving forward, these groups that somehow are referenced as the ones speaking, and I can do this because I'm Hawaiian, and these groups gave it the blessing. Don't worry about the people are meeting and telling it's not good. These people gave the blessing. That really...
Well, that's uhane. When it comes down, and how I settle that and ground with that with myself, which is an everyday process as we're living through this every day. And many of these groups have gotten tremendous funding from FEMA, from these, governmental organizations that have come in after the wildfire under this emergency proclamation, which has had many different amendments to try and take away those rights culturally that we have environmentally. And when I look at how to coexist within our community with other leaders who have not done all the Pono things, to have right relationship with our Aina, with our Kuleana, with our community, for whatever reasons they are driven by, a lot of it goes down to uhane, which is the ego self. And that has taken over that deeper knowing of our origin. And to be okay with that.
Are the young Hawaiians, because I'm not in touch as much, are the young Hawaiians upset? I mean, I don't know how they process
one of
it.
my, when I look at that, which is part of one of my concerns, and I am a young Hawaiian, indigenous human being.
With future generations.
Right, yet I am not that young anymore. I'm 45. And so I'm coming into a different time in my own life where when I look at that, it is of great concern to have different cultural group leaders that are setting this kind of precedence for all of their younger generations to follow and see, okay, we're going to talk about malama aina. We're going to talk about aloha aina and getting our culture back, our Hawaiian kingdom, our lands, our water, our life sources. Yet when we're faced with a crisis of nature that we are, and toxic waste like this, that then you are going to go ahead and be okay with desecration of a sacred space and more damage to our Mother Earth, and then say, well, I'm going to protect this one, but not this one. It is of great concern of mine that that precedence is being started, because the younger generation is seeing that. They are behaving in that. And that is not in right relationship.
And it surely undercuts all their desire.
It's the opposite of aloha aina.
Exactly what you want to do.
It's the opposite of malama aina. And I am not in a place in my life where I can live in pretense of that being and not speaking about that and shining light on it, because it is important and it is truth. And it is something that we need to be aware of that imbalance. And I am a person of positive solution at the same time. Those downloads come simultaneously. And to have hope in our people, in all humanity, to have the strength, individual strength, to start communicating honestly with ourselves and make right. And not be afraid to just put it down and just shift. Look at what it is to come into that balance. Embrace the ho'oponopono. It's a roto-rooter. It's layers. And it's not easy. It's a discipline. It's a practice.
And I'm only just going to sort of try to transition, because
yes,
that is so important. We see it even on a global level. You know, it's
yes,
like you say, you know, take it in stages. It's like layers.
It is.
It's quite an experience to suddenly face the truth and see it and speak it and
move through it. Because the second aspect of ho'oponopono is acceptance. And that, therefore, flows into forgiveness of oneself and others. And it's not condoning the wrongs that have been done. It's freeing oneself and those that are attached to that from being done, and then release.
And then doing the right thing. Should we not
Yes.
get to that point?
And continuing that.
Because if without that piece, you know, we
that's
see
the end result.
problem, we forgive someone, but that doesn't mean that's the end of our responsibility, because it's on this earth.
No, it's not like we go right back into a confession.
And that's what
room.
concerns me sometimes.
It is. And how that
people
happens.
retreat back into understanding and feeling justified.
That's
like they're
uhane. That's the
doing
ego
their
self.
thing because they've said they agree. So what are you going to do about that? How are you going to be part of this
accountable?
Solution? Yeah. So when I talk
We all
about
have to take accountability.
the young people
yes.
that really need to be involved on a national level, it's hard to deny. We have two guys running for president that are old.
Yeah.
And how many young people like or respect either of these guys and their policies and their lives, and they're watching it happen, and some are voting and such, but here locally we have an opportunity for something like you said earlier, and I'm keeping it simple. Why are they putting a toxic waste dump so close to the ocean on the path of tourism? This is going to destroy the future of tourism and kill all the people that live here and would think to come here. So what kind of a move is this?
Yeah, and most
Blind.
sites like this, it's in areas that they become uninhabitable, or they usually put these kinds of toxic waste combinations in uninhabited areas for a reason, because of its level of toxicity and poison to humankind, Mother Earth, across the board.
Yeah.
And part of the attachment which again is when we look at the aspects of self, goes back to the ego, is that attachment of the subject that had come up with why it shouldn't be taken off island, is the attachment to the ashes. The Eevee, they said that they retrieved most of the Eevee, and just to give a description of what that is, the Eevee are the bones, actual bone fragments of our human being. Mm-hmm. And the ashes. When if that healing and that balance can take place, because it still needs to happen, it's still happening, that's why, of letting that go, because that is part of the process of release and understanding that this is not normal circumstances of what that holds due to the poison, and allowing that self to just be settled in knowing that no matter what, that individual who has been lost is always with you. They are not identified in that. And the Eevee, like the Eevee of Olowalu, the Eevee kupuna that are there, is it okay for that to just be desecrated, to then bring in this toxic waste and everything? It's very muddy, you know?
Well, I know that, like when just what you said, the Hawaiians honor and knew that. And when they put ashes out into the ocean, or
you're releasing it.
You're releasing. So here, this whole confusion, maybe it's that it's okay, and that somehow the groups are thinking because they can release it, and they're making decisions, cultural decisions, in a way that aren't honoring or explaining to anyone what they're doing. And my hit about the thing about taking everything off island goes one step further. Maybe we're not the scientists here, but all that can be processed almost on site.
That's right.
The day after the fire, I spoke to a friend who there was a movie called The Need to Grow. Mm-hmm. And in that movie, there was a guy named Michael Smith who we got to know here. Anyway, taking green waste, turning it into power. That process and what they were doing, there's something
into
called
building materials.
Pyrolysis. What is that? A closed system where you can raise the temperature without oxygen and extract things off. And why are we not doing these kind of things on site? Why are we shipping them somewhere else? That's the first thing. So that's how I feel, that it could be done and honoring, even if we were to keep it here. And if we weren't, it's the releasing of everything. That's all understandable.
To grow and move forward.
But
and
why did
we gathered so much information. And scientists from around the world with deep knowledge and wisdom of dealing with these types of toxic wastes. It's a different situation because of the combination, which also adds to the danger of it. And refuse, garbage. How do we, go green with it, really? And they showed up, and we presented it to the County Council of Maui, to the mayor, to multiple different organizations.
You know, when I was there the day there was public testimony, and I sadly, or happily, got there early, and so I was the first to speak. And I knew of this answer. I was the first one speaking. I didn't mention pyrolysis or ways to do anything.
And that's one aspect of the process.
Were following that would be presenting there. And I was horrified when Eddie Garcia got up and said, look, weeks ago we presented this 60-page, however many page document with the scientists. When I saw those scientists on Saturday, we hope to have some of them here and some of the words on here besides.
And he asked if
Just
any of them had read it.
And
not one of them did.
One.
And when we say them, we're talking about specifically the county council and the mayor and those that work within our local government.
It's horrible.
It is. And that shows also what we're dealing with. And that lack of connectedness and their kuleana, being voted in, being public servants in their positions, to hear our voices and to take into consideration our feelings, our thoughts.
We would probably guess that, I mean, I know Gabe Johnson, by example. He's going to be on our show, who voted against it. And that's great. But these people are so overwhelmed.
And
and I always wonder
Mahalo for
myself,
that.
they have staff of people working for them. They've got tons of testimony. They don't know what they do first because we have so many burning fires. No intended to be a pun. There are so many challenges. Hale Makua, which is supposed to receive people that are sick, have 16 beds, but they don't have staff to do it because they have no budget. We're talking about people who are asking to help us that don't have money, that hear about there's money from over here. And when someone says, if we don't do this, we're not going to have the money to do it. The pressure on these people, and so they don't know what to read. And boy, to us, the public, I know I feel very badly personally when all the answers were posed so long ago, before they had to put a shovel in the dirt.
That's right.
And they don't even look. That's
and it
a
shows
horrible,
that
horrible
it does.
thing. But
and
now,
what the agenda
stop
is.
now and read it. Stop how endless. I mean, that's what I don't get, really.
Yeah.
Is why isn't there, after all this outcry, maybe it's not enough outcry. So I hope you don't mind. I'm not going to give up this subject just because it's ongoing and people say, well, that's already gone. That ship is already
No, we
sailed.
can't have that same mindset.
This is the potential destruction of Hawaii as you know it.
That's
Not only
right.
the Hawaiian people, but all you selfish people that want to think about money and this is the end. You put toxins that accumulate in an environment. You're killing your golden goose.
Absolutely. And then when they're looking at what they're going to call now as the permanent site and the three options, and to me it looks like Central Maui, and when you think of that, it's just baffling because okay, you're going to have the burn site, Lahaina town, then now all the way to Olowalu has been cross-contaminated. There's no coverage on the trucks. There's no protocols in place of cleaning anything. And then you're going to say, okay, then we're going to take what we can from that because it's not wrapped in the burritos. The transport is so ridiculous. There's cement, there's metal, there's ash, there's the burritos. As soon as they get up to the site, it comes out of the dump truck. The bulldozer comes through, mixes it all into the aina there. It's exposed to the wind, the water, all elements. And then from there now,
So
take
they
it to
triple
Central
or
Maui.
quadruple their work. They're
And
toxifying larger and larger
Maui.
areas.
And the community is...
And where's our community? Why isn't someone demanding that someone stop it? Is it because there's no money? Didn't you hear us just say, even it sounds like no conversation here, pyrolysis, a closed system, no waste go anywhere, completely closed, and can actually be gone at the end of this process. If they sent it to Utah, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but for $400 a cubic yard to send it to Utah, based on someone saying there's 400,000 cubic yards, that's $140 million. Is that why we're doing that? We're not even considering that. How much is it costing us to do this and keep it here? There it could be gone, completely gone. All that toxicity burned up, everything. That's not even looked at.
Systems could be set up there in the contaminated zone.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Why move it and keep spreading a problem? It is just, no matter which aspect, whether it's cultural, whether it's economic, whether it's anything, I don't know who's making these decisions.
It's created imminent danger.
And permanent
environmentally,
danger.
Yep. Irrevocable harm. Forever.
Don't you think that's important enough for you to get off your couch or turn the radio down a little bit and say, I want to help stop
Be quiet.
this.
Start communicating
Right now,
honestly
we
with
have
yourself.
And see,
No matter what amount of money when these cancers start showing up, because it's inevitable that they do.
Yes, they do.
And the illusion of not seeing something, tasting it, or being able to feel it is completely wrong. To then convince yourself that it doesn't exist and you are not in danger of it. And it's the illusion of toxins. When you look at poison mindsets, poison this and poison that, there's always that illusion part of it. And the fact that we have a combination of the most toxic substances known to mankind, created by mankind, and then having to be dealt with.
And consider that history has
so
already
dangerous.
shown us
That's right.
this problem. When the World Trade Center, no matter who did it, no matter what, that was another toxic site.
That's right.
How many people now, 22 years later, show direct link to the problems from the ash from then?
That's right.
Are we not waking up? Are we? We're in a beautiful, serene place here. Why is our mayor? That's why I keep wondering.
I wonder too.
What is going on?
And when you look at some of the side effects of these toxins, one of the common threads through all of them, which is really sad to me when I really look at it through a holistic la'au lapa'au medicine woman view, is that it affects the reproductive systems for men and women and the wombs of our future generations, and the generations of suffering of side effects through the new souls, the children, the keiki okana, they're going to be born through those wombs that have the toxins within them and those side effects. It is already hard enough for our people to take care of well children. For generations to be born then with side effects from these toxins and toxic exposure is very concerning in that big picture. And that is something that we are not prepared for. And it's just a deep prayer of mine that I hold in that sacred space within, that the younger generation is able to, especially those of childbearing years, is able to have a deeper understanding of what it is, the dangers, and start making choices to protect themselves and their families. Because what the older generation is showing is not that. And I was talking with my son, Ka'ai, and I think it's important we touch on this because this is a message to that younger generation. And those of us who have that awareness as parents, as aunties, uncles, grandparents, to not be afraid to have those conversations with the young adults, it is important, so have them. So I was talking with my son, Ka'ai, who's at UH Manoa right now, Hawaiian Studies and pre-law. Two of his best friends, wahines, they're all 18 and 19, are working out there. One of them's father, their family owns Alpha. And they're working there at the Olowalu site.
Alpha is one of the companies working at the Olowalu site.
Yes, they are doing majority of the construction and operations there on site, as well as the cleanup site in Lahaina. And so my niece was there this past couple of days with my son Ka'ai, and I had talked to them weeks ago when I found out that they were working there to shine light on the concerns, and I've been that kind of auntie mama to all of them. And I was talking with my niece's mother as well, because she was wondering, like, what is it, Ka'io? Her car is coming home with the soot on it. Do you think that has the toxin? It's absolutely yes, it does. So that brought us to the bigger subject of everybody who's working there. Now, there is no wash downs of the cars. There's no safety precautions in place. They are then going and bringing that home to their homes, spreading it all over the island. And my nieces, who are 19, not even understanding what they're being exposed to, no protocols for them to be in hazmat suits or any of that. So she was sharing with my son that they had to go work. She had to go work at the site where they were cleaning up by the old mill. And she's been getting it more and more, but they pay them good money. They pay them $60 an hour. And for a 19-year-old, that's like big bucks, you know?
Big people, that's a lot of money.
I'm so surprised that the other one's father would even have her daughter work there or any B exposure. It's just like, wow, another layer. But we all have choices, right? And so she said, wow, it was so trippy because they have these squared off areas there. And the guys in one of the squares, right next to each other now, are in hazmat suits. And then she's not in a hazmat suit, but she's supposed to wear a mask while she's there at that site. And then the guys over here in this square section have no protection. And in her little mind, she was so confused, and she felt like, whoa, this is crazy. But to see the paradigms. And I just told her, I said, well, you let that sink in, and you have a choice. And she said, Auntie, I'm going to tell them if they ask me to go there again that I'm not going to go there because I don't feel safe. And I said, exactly. And it's those small steps that are big steps, I feel, that we have to believe in and hold on to. And for the next generation to, you know, for us to talk to them about it, have those hard conversations, so then when they're experiencing it firsthand, it's able to spark inside of them, and then that power comes back in.
And look what kind of power having money can do.
Yes.
To getting people $60 an hour to take people to work in a toxic zone.
Our keiki, our next generation.
There we go. And then, I mean, I saw movies that are talking about this is a planned thing, a planned obsolescence.
Yes.
We don't need
it's
people.
It's of great concern.
We can kill them for 3 generations and bring down population. And all these things are part of an even greater conspiracy that we don't even need to get into.
No.
You know?
And I don't know, you know,
I'm looking so I can see.
Conspiracies, I think the word conspiracy scares people.
9 minutes. Is that right? Yeah, they're going to tell me. I think it's one of these.
I don't want to go off too much on the conspiracy. No, I think conspiracy is a word that holds a lot of impact, and it also it's
beyond our.
It's a trigger.
Knowing.
It's a trigger.
If we can't prove it,
phrase.
We don't want to use it. But it is interesting
I think
to see
theories.
How our culture. They have movies about it. They are filling our mind with what seemed like somebody's had a plan, whether they implement it or not. They come up with all these schemes. It's like, and our young people that's the exposure.
It's the dark side of the shadow showing within humanity. And that is something that we need to really look at and understand. And agendas, I come with no agenda here.
Oh, I understand.
And when you look at our government, they're running agendas. You know, those individuals who take on those roles within the government, they may not have taken that on with that agenda, but at what point are they able to communicate honestly with themselves to see whose agenda they now are running? And it is something that we are facing here. There's this new bill, the Lele bill, which is of great concern as well, because that is basically this group. I've just read it the other day. I'm still processing it and integrating it into understanding what it is, because there's a lot of agendas in it. And what does that mean? What is this trying to be created as far as an organization governing themselves when there's enough of that? Part of what is happening with the cultural practitioners here is they govern themselves. What makes a cultural practitioner? What gives that individual any sort of authority to speak on behalf of all, sign off on things when you look at Olowalu and those that have done that wrong with that? in not honoring it? I ask those questions to our elders and to those who are cultural practitioners. Who cross-checks that? And are we able as cultural practitioners to communicate honestly with ourselves? Check our uhanes. How's the balance of our inner family? Is Amakua still leading, or is uhane leading? And Unihipili, the librarian of our lifetimes, our subconscious, our intuition, and all of those aspects just ignores suffering.
You may not believe it, but we only have a minute left. Isn't that amazing?
Well, I like that we're rounding it up on our on our inner self.
And I hope you'll come back and, bring more. I want your father back here, of all things. He was so eloquent when I heard him speaking. And your husband, look forward to hearing more and talking more. There's all kinds of subjects we could talk about. Ka'io Martin Cruz, first of all, congratulations on you.
Oh, mahalo.
Congratulations on being who you are. You're a great example of someone who's stepping up and stepping out. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. And all you out there.
Yes.
These people out in our zone here.
So I challenge that to speak honestly with yourself, and let's start the change, the positive change.
We are it, and it's us, and we'll see you next week. And we're going to hopefully have someone else. We're going to be talking about this same subject from a different aspect.
Yay.
Thank you for being here this week.
Mahalo.
We'll see you next week. Blessings to everyone.
Ahui ho.
Aloha.